Greetings, everybody. If you follow Nutrition World at all, you know I'm very, very want to empower people with knowledge and value to help their health, help their family's health in all these different ways that you're really not hearing about. If you follow a lot of our material, you've learned that I have kind of taken a step down on greens powder. Why was that? We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about why I've changed my mind again about the addition of greens powder into my plan of action for aging gracefully. Here I am about to be turning 68, and I continue to be fascinated by the power of what we can do on our own with wisdom, knowledge, earth's remedies, green pharmacy, all the words you want to put together. But today we have a very special guest, Ted Parker from Vibrant Health. I've known this gentleman for years. Flew all the way down here to talk about some of the nitty-gritties of this nutrition conversation that we have, one of which is the greens powder, but also his company is regarded as still, I think, one of the most quality originated, vetting everything, triple checking. He's like me. He wouldn't do something. He wouldn't sell something he wouldn't take himself, and he's very, very cautious about what he takes. So welcome to Nutrition World's podcast, Ted.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Again, I'll talk just a minute here, and then we can start. If people follow me, I had actually double hip replacement 2 years ago next week.
Wow.
I had 3.5 years of extreme pain, got to a point of a cane, got to a point of a walker in my home, but I was pretending it wasn't hurting that bad when I walked around here just with a cane, but it was. The hips didn't look that bad. We did several x-rays over a period of 3 years, but I went to an orthopedic one of my trusted people here at the store, Josh Porter, who's physician's assistant, who owns Optimize You. He said, Ed, you have to go see Dr. Higgins. Well, when he did an x-ray of me standing up, it showed that I had no hips left. They were completely destroyed. And it just turned me upside down. Wasn't because the hips didn't bother me as much as the why. Why did my hips dissolve away when I've done everything right? Now, I know we rent these bodies. They are going to wear out. Right. I've come to a lot more peace with that. But as far as the level it wore out was far more than any common sense should have allowed. So Sally Norton had just come out with a book called Toxic Superfoods that spoke about the fact that there's these compounds called oxalates, which are really like glass compounds. They're very abrasive. And in a lot of healthy foods, there's a lot of oxalates. And in some people, they concentrate in joints. They can concentrate in the eyes, in the skin, certainly kidney stones. And so I went
That's what makes kidney stones, right?
It is.
Crystals.
Most of them,
yeah.
90% are made from that. And so I went on a completely no oxalate diet. And what happened was you start dumping oxalates, and I felt awful on that for a little while. But then you start going to the positive side. And here I am at 68 with about 95% less pain than I've had in 20 years because I had the normal pains of a guy who works out hard, works hard, stands on the floor. And I just thought, even though I do all the right things, it's just normal. It wasn't normal. It was my oxalates. And so
From back then, do you think?
Because I've eaten so healthy.
Yeah.
Spinach contains almost 600 milligrams. If you do more than 150 milligrams a day, you're putting yourself at risk if you are an accumulator of oxalates. You'll never hear a health professional speak of this. And I did a great YouTube interview with Sally Norton that we spoke for about 55 minutes on exactly what this is about. And so I'm saying all that to say, during that time, I eliminated high-dose vitamin C, which I've still done. I only do about 500 milligrams a day, tops. I was doing 5,000.
Plant-based?
I'm not going to do I'm doing plant-based now, and I think will be better. But still, some of those ascorbic acids, even plant-based, could turn to oxalates in a person like me. And then I had to eliminate turmeric, but curcumin's fine. The turmeric by itself, I know it's weird, but once it's processed into curcumin, it took away the oxalates. And then lastly, was my heartbreak it was like my other girlfriend was my greens powder from you, Green Vibrance. And it always has supported me mentally that I was giving my body what it needed from the earth, and also nutritionally, scientifically, every box was checked as to why this is so important. But I had to cut it out because, these greens, a lot of these green foods have it. Now, broccoli doesn't, and some other ones. And so it was really, truly a heartbreak because I really valued your product to help my overall health, anti-cancers and anti-inflammatory, cleansing the liver, doing all the things that we all choose to do. Well, you happened to come down and visit us a few months ago, and I had expressed my deep concern. You were to prove what Ted's like. He had recently, right before he came down, did a scientific test on his oxalate levels in his greens powder. It was so low that I didn't even know what to say to you, Ted, because I didn't know why other companies weren't doing it. You had already done it, and now because of the level of being so low, I am back on your product.
Oh,
and so I want you to kind of tell maybe a little bit, and this is not to sell anything. This is to say, if you're looking and you think greens powders are important for your health, here's the kind of the dark side or the nitty gritty that you need to know, because a lot of companies are not really doing it what I would feel comfortable with. This is not a standardized product. This is not a vitamin E or a vitamin D that has certain single molecules. This is a very comprehensive, and where you source it and all the components of a greens powder. If you're doing a greens powder out there, anybody, please listen to Ted about the things you need to maybe consider when you're purchasing and using that, because there is a downside if it's grown wrong, harvested wrong, processed wrong.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to be quiet now and let you talk.
Yeah, so thank you, Ed, for your vulnerability, because without being so vulnerable, your customers and your listeners would not learn as much as they do. So I think vulnerability is a big part of what we do in this industry. We need to talk about the things that we're going through and share it so we can all learn. You know, there are a lot of people who are going through the same issues that you went through and don't know why. They have no clue why they're in pain. So thank you for being vulnerable.
Thank you.
So when it comes to, the kind of the world of green foods, I kind of call it the greens wars, because there are just so many different green products out there. There are green products that you can find on shelf, green products you can find online, green products that are made here in the United States, made in Asia, made in New Zealand. It's all over. It's a global thing, right? And it's a good thing. I think all greens have some good, but you have to be discerning and you have to be selective. And I think a good place to start is starting with a greens product that fully discloses its ingredient list by dose, so you know exactly what's in there, right? Unfortunately, there are more proprietary blends out there than I care to.
What does that word mean?
So a proprietary blend is a listing of ingredients in paragraph form. It would almost be like when you were a kid, you see the loaf of Wonder Bread and you see a paragraph of ingredients and you go, what is all this stuff? That's a proprietary blend. It'll actually start off by saying a proprietary blend of these ingredients. And above it, it'll have, 25,000 milligrams of all this stuff.
But no breakdown of individual components.
But no breakdown of individual components. So you really have no idea of how much you're getting of each. Not only that, but there's also a lack of consistency in the production process. So what that means is that if the price of one raw material goes up and you have a proprietary blend, you can take that ingredient and make it the least abundant in your formula, and vice versa, right? So the goal here is to say, all right, I want a product that's transparent, because if it's transparent, I feel that I can trust it, right? If it's transparent, I know that it's going to be some consistency in there in the production process. If it's transparent, then maybe they're doing the testing that they need to do. You're hopeful that that's the case, right? Because with transparency, there's, again, that level of trust. It is really amazing to see the level of oxalates that can be found in greens, the level of heavy metals that can be found in greens. And it really depends on where these products are produced and grown. So, for example, for years we've looked at greens that were grown here in the Americas and grown abroad. In Europe, greens that are grown there are quite clean. Here, the lead levels are, and heavy metals, whether it be lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, or mercury, they're very low here, very low. But if you go to Asia, and now you can get a lot of greens from China. Now, the Chinese are really exceptional at anything done in the laboratory. Chinese herbs. They've been creating Chinese herbs for centuries. They know that, and they do it well in the laboratory. Unfortunately, when they grow a lot of their foods, because there is no limit on pollution in China, condensation goes up, heavy metals, acid rain comes down, and ladens the fields with heavy metals. So it's not something that they can avoid. They don't want to have heavy metals in their foods, but they're just there, way more than they are here in the United States. So as a company, we only source our plant-based foods from the middle of this country. We find that, right in the middle of the country, the soils are extremely nutrient dense, rich, and you can pick, they almost look black, the soil that's in the middle of the country. And I'm talking about from Illinois all the way down to Arkansas in some respects. You'll find in Iowa a lot of volcanic soil that is just rich, but also very low in heavy metals, very low. So that's where we get most of our greens from, because in looking at the analysis and some of the ingredients that are out there, it's going to be the lowest here in this country and in Europe.
So you use your discernment and, of course, your commitment to quality to find the farms and the farmers that are in the right area, number one.
Yeah.
That makes such good sense, because I doubt that, Mr. Smith's farm right next to Mr. Jones's farm, they both have the same probable heavy metals unless one of them has done something terrible. So choose the areas that you already know are far safer. Now, I'll go back to getting greens to me is even as equal to buying a new car. And you go in and you look at the sticker and you try to figure out, okay, is this appropriate for me? Is this what I need? Is this what I don't need? Do I really need that sunroof? Do I really, is it going to hurt me to have a 16 mile per gallon gas opposed to 25? All these are big considerations. Don't take greens lightly, people, because I can tell you this gentleman's very, very kind about his words. I'm more blunt about it, because there are greens that have so many heavy metals, pesticides, contaminants, because again, it makes sense. Of course, you're dealing with a product that, how many different ingredients is in your product?
Today, Green Vibrance has about 70 ingredients today.
70.
Yeah.
So you can imagine.
21. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And it's been updated how many times?
44 times.
I love that, because there's so few companies they so often just stick with the same formula despite science, despite learning, despite needs, but yours is not. And again, this is not to sell your product. I'm just wanting to empower people to make better choices, whether it's here or whether it's in another store or wherever you order it. I think we have to be more diligent with our homework with greens than almost anything else in the natural food industry, because as you explained, it leaves open the door for companies to easily manipulate in order to create more profits. We all need profits. That's the fuel that runs any boat, ship, car, and businesses. But we can do it with great ethics at the same time, as I certainly know your company does, and I certainly wake up every day to do that at Nutritional World. So when I see those changes, or did see those changes in your product over all these years, I always was like, golly, you are on your game. Mm. So again, going back to, you got 70 individual ingredients. Can you give a summary of why would a person even want a greens product? What would be the value that you have seen throughout all of your years in feedback from people in regard to a greens product?
Yeah, Ed, we don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. Mm-hmm. Plain and simple. In this country, the typical American diet is brown and beige and white. That is the typical diet. And a brown, beige, and white diet is not only void of nutrition, it's also dangerous. It can be deadly. We need these nutrients. We need them from plants, because your body will assimilate the nutrients from plants more readily than isolated nutrients. We know that. But you can go a step further. And one thing that I loved about the founder of our company, Mark Timon, he was really focused on not only nutrition, because in order to achieve vibrant health, he knew that you had to go beyond nutrition. Nutrition alone is great, and that's a starting point. And that's where most greens come into play, and they give you all of those colors. And a really good greens food would not only be green. When you finish your cup and you look at the bottom of that glass, you should see flecks of orange and purple and blue.
I like that.
Yeah, you should see all of those colors. But that's a true, really good green food when you see those flecks. But most green foods today, I think, have gone a step further. Hopefully, if they're a really good green food, they have said, all right, well, nutrition alone isn't going to get you there. You also need good digestion, because if you don't have good digestion, can you have good nutrition? It's kind of the question, right? So digestion really becomes critical when you think about how am I going to assimilate all the nutrients of the foods in this product and the foods that I eat every day. And then when you think about it, you think about how many cells you have in your body. You have, 70 to 80 trillion cells that all need to be fed, rested, and kept from toxins. Well, how do you circulate all those nutrients around the body without good circulation? So circulation becomes really important if you're going to feed the cells at the very tips of your fingers and bottom of your toes. And then, of course, a robust immune system. We're all focused on our immune system today after COVID, but a really strong immune system doesn't just help protect against, the flu or COVID or, it helps protect against, cardiovascular disease. A good immune system helps protect against blood sugar disorders and so forth and so on. I mean, there's so many things that a good immune system will help. And so daily immunity comes into play. So the 4 foundations of health that we've identified are nutrition, digestion, circulation, and immunity. And a good greens food will focus on all of those, including neurological health, cardiovascular health, detoxification, and so on.
Throughout my 46 years, and I think any of us in this industry who have been passionate, if you're a learner, and I say this a lot on my radio show, I separate the world into 2 classes of people, learners and non-learners. And non-learners, if they get upset about it, it's okay, because if you're a non-learner, you're just a non-learner. But you're not, I think you become a victim when you're a non-learner, one thing, because you're going to be more susceptible to so many other influences because you're not filling your toolbox with wisdom and intelligence. Well, as far as, my progression of what do I do for myself, I have become more of a carnivore type of diet. I eat the foods that support that in very clean levels as best I can. I do eat a less vegetable somewhat because of the oxalate issue, and there's an app on iPhone called OxyPure, OXIPUR, that will list all the foods, and there's another one on Android, I don't know the name. And I really am cautious about that because I did slip up a couple times, and I do have more joint pain within a day if I slip up and eat those. Do I miss my nuts, my almonds, my dark chocolate? Yes, I do. But I've gotten used to it, but I'm eating broccoli and other things. Now, I think that greens, it's not the nutritive value so much as sometimes what we call phytochemicals within the plants, because plants have defense mechanisms of their own. They have ways to stay healthy that protect them against their own toxins and their own environments. And we ingest those, we tend to inherit some of those superpowers. That's one. 2 is I continue, and I will never cease from this belief, and I think you would agree, the microbiome is essential to our long-term health. I just did a whole podcast on nutrition with the microbiome of the oral cavity. I'm doing a microbiome test, and I'm waiting for the results to come back because that alone supports cognitive function and cardiac health, plus many others. And I was making some mistakes on how I took care of my gums and teeth. And so one thing that greens does is support those microbiomes. The healthy bacteria need food, and the greens can support that. Second, there's a system called P450 in the liver. That's what detoxes everything from the diesel fumes you've smelled behind the bus to whatever you eat, drink, and whatever. And greens will upregulate a P450 system, so it opens those doors instead of them being halfway closed. They open so these toxins don't stay in the body and cause damage. They actually move through. And then thirdly, it's the pH of the body. We know from back in Otto Warburg's time when he got the Nobel Prize for cancer, in regard to a lot of that had to do with pH and fungus and other things. We don't want an overly acidic system, and greens are one of the best ways to be more pH healthy. So forgetting nutrients, there's the 3 reasons why I think it's critical. That's also the reasons why I still focus on the foods, the green foods that I can eat that have no or low oxalates, because there's people who are only living on the carnivore diets I think they're missing some major benefits by not having greens. And I throw yours in my protein powder just once a day. And yes, it makes it taste a little different, look a little different. It's no big deal. I don't eat for enjoyment number one. I eat enjoyment about number three, but everything else is to help to support the process of me as I'm getting near 7 decades of life.
Sure, sure. I love how you point out the superpowers that plants pass along to us, and you made me think about adaptogens and how adaptogens find it an incredible way of surviving in very difficult environments.
Mm-hmm.
And when we take these adaptogens, that superpower is passed along to us. We are able to adapt in difficult environments. And that's one thing that I got from what you said there. With regard to alkalinity, and, greens do a great job of keeping you alkaline. And disease finds it very difficult to live in an alkaline environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that one of the benefits of greens, a really good greens, is alkalinity. But if a really good greens has a really good formula within the formula of probiotics, that's really where it's
Bingo.
at. Right?
Yes, and yours does.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So having that formula within the formula of probiotics that is multi-strained, right? That has strains that will target the large and small intestine simultaneously, that'll let us set an environment for healthy intestinal flora, right? These strains will find the receptor sites. They will begin to feed and multiply and double in strength every 15 minutes. That's the beauty of multi-strains that are resident, human strains, by the way. Not, we really focus on human strains, and I know that there are dairy strains out there, and they're very good. But we found that the human strain, they do find the receptor sites, and they start to colonize better because they're home, right? That's where they're from.
Mm-hmm.
They're from us. And I often get that question, like, what do you mean they're from us? Well, where'd they come from? Well, they did come from, cadavers and human fecal matter, and that's how probiotics are grown. Most people don't want to hear that, but that's how they're cultivated or sourced, human strain, that is. But, yeah, they're just amazing. And some of them, because they are human, they are very resilient. These strains today, and every year that goes by, we find strains that are gastric resistant, bile tolerant, antibiotic resistant, more bifidogenic than they were years before. So yeah, it's quite amazing the research that's going on the microbiome that advances every year. So as a company, just as a brand, and this is not a commercial here, but we try to make sure that we don't cast any formula in stone. Right? That they're dynamic by design. They evolve as our understanding of the science evolves, which is continuous. It's it's ongoing. So I think that's having a green food that if you do find a formula, and it's not just a green food, but just supplements in general that are comprehensive. If you find a product that you like and it works for you, great. Look for those products that actually have version numbers on them. It's hard to find, but if you could find those, it's indicative of a product that is evolutionary.
I love it. And like I said earlier, I've never seen a product that had so much evolution of change based on wisdom, common sense, and caring and science. So that's where I think your company definitely stands out. You make so many fantastic products that we're certainly going to keep expanding on those too as we learn and as we need to offer that to people, because you have some unique products. Real quickly before we end, what are just 2 or 3 of your other unique products that are not really commonly found?
Yeah, so one that one of my favorite ingredients, and it seems like I have a new favorite ingredient every few years.
Yep.
And it's really because I go to these supply side shows twice a year, and we look at supply side East and supply side West. And at these shows, you meet interesting people from all over the world, and they have some of these are farmers, and they have and some are just scientists, and they have wonderful ingredients that we just never even knew that existed. So minerals in particular, I'm fascinated about because they're so important to overall health. But if you get it in the wrong form, it can end up in the wrong place or not be absorbed at all, right? So Finding minerals that are altered to improve their bioavailability never ceases to amaze me how many ways you can make a mineral more bioavailable. But when it came to boron in particular, and boron is I did a white paper during COVID on boron, and I just found it fascinating. Typically when I'm doing research and I'm reading, a lot of this stuff is just very technical, and to be honest with you, boring. It puts me to sleep. It's a snoozer many times. Many times very fascinating and exciting. This was that. It was exciting. It was fascinating. And I remember one of the first things I read about boron is that it's not ubiquitous to Earth, that it's really not of this planet. Sure, there is boron found in the core of the planet, and it comes up during volcanic eruptions, during plate tectonic shifting. It'll percolate to the surface, but most of the surface boron was delivered here via meteorite.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, over millennia. Yeah, delivered via meteorite. And when those meteorites hit this planet, plants started to grow. So boron, before boron, there was no life here. So boron kind of gave life to this planet, which I found fascinating. So of course, I'm reading them, turning the pages. I'm going, oh, this is interesting. This is fascinating. Here we have an extraterrestrial mineral here. So as I'm turning the pages and I'm reading, I'm realizing all of the benefits that boron has. And we often think about boron for bone health and driving calcium into bone, and we think about boron for hormone balancing. Those are the two things that we really hang our hat on when it comes to boron. But most people don't know, and I don't know if you knew, that boron will lower C-reactive protein in the body. We were just having this conversation with someone on your team. It'll lower C-reactive protein in the body between 37 to 60%.
Did not know that. Wow. And C-reactive is one of the things I value. I encourage all of my clients to get blood work at our blood testing facility or at your doctor to check high sensitivity C-reactive protein. It is really connected to a really decline of our body in so many ways. There's nothing positive about a high C-reactive except on a very short period. If your body has to deal with something for a few days, it's necessary. But after that, it's destructive.
Yeah.
So tell real quickly, because we got about 4 minutes left. Tell me more about this boron.
Yeah, so boron that we use is from a company in Illinois called Futureceuticals. Now, Futureceuticals is our supplier. There are very few companies that have it. I think Life Extension has it, we have it, and one other company has it. It is an ingredient called calcium fructoborate. Now, calcium fructoborate is a bioidentical form of boron to the boron found in fruits and vegetables. Because boron is so sparsely scattered around the planet, and it really has to do with where those meteors struck. Like you will find high concentrations of boron in Israel, high concentrations of boron in certain parts of Australia, high concentrations of boron in the Mojave Desert. But everywhere else is, very scant. So in fruits and vegetables, it's too low of an amount to really help to prevent arthritis. Now, that's one of the huge benefits of boron. Countries that have high boron in the soil and the water have very, very low incidence of arthritis.
Really?
Very, very low. It's almost non-existent.
So supplementally, it makes good sense to look at that. What milligram is recommended?
Recommended is 3 milligrams. Most of RDA will recommend 3 milligrams. We recommend 6.
6. I know it also helps to keep testosterone slightly higher in men also, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It does a really good job of balancing hormones in men and women. It'll raise testosterone to optimal levels in men, reduce estrogen, and do the opposite in women. Raise estrogen to optimal levels, reduce testosterone to optimal levels.
I know one of the practitioners, Laura, at Optimize You, she recommends boron for the sex hormone binding globulin when it's too high. She's found that boron helps lower that, and that's something that actually inhibits the body's ability to use those hormones in men and women. So that was something I learned from her. This has been fantastic. We're about to run out of time. Tell people, if they want to learn all about your product line, where would they go on the internet?
They go to vibranthealth.com.
Yep, that makes good sense.
Yeah.
And I know you're always traveling, always learning, and we would look forward to new science, new papers, new information, new products as you feel that they're necessary. Again, one of the other things that I repeat over and over between Vital Health Radio, my radio show and podcast, 18 to 80, which is another podcast, Nutrition Worlds, Instagram at Nutrition World Chattanooga, is the fact that we need to create a team approach as we get older. Team approach is trusted individuals who you have experience with that can help provide you with more information that is worthy, sound, safe, because the normal traditional methods that we have to maintain health is fantastic if you're in a car wreck or you have accidents or you have strep throat, but we got to have that secondary team, and that has to do with what's best diet for you, maybe what's the blood work that can be analyzed from a different angle. The nutrient team members are vital. It's one reason I feel that we've created a culture at Nutrition World of trust, because with 37 staff members, I always train them to say their number one priority is to not sell at the register. Our number one priority is to empower people, educate, and there are people who will walk in the store that don't need what we have at this moment, and we have to always be honest with that. And I feel that you and I are cut out of the same cloth with that, because I've known you long enough to know that. So thrilled that you made such an effort to come all the way down here. What town do you live in?
Westport, Connecticut.
Okay. Yeah, not a skip and a jump for sure. So
more of a leap.
No, yeah, that's right. You're going to be training my staff today. You're going to be doing other education. So I just value you as one of the team members, and I want to share you with our community. So thank you very much, Ted, for joining us today.
Ed, thank you and your team for your stewardship. We all need it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.